Hi, I'm David Shindler, and welcome once again to the Learning to Leap podcast. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome Monira Ahmed, Careers Advisor with the University of Central Lancashire and a recent winner of a National Careers Champions Award. Welcome, Monira.
Hi, David. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Real pleasure to be here this
It's
morning.
really great to speak with you, and such an honour as well to have a careers guru on the Learning to Leap podcast.
Thank you.
I'd like to start with just tell us a little bit briefly about how you came to be a careers advisor and this national award and a careers champion.
Well, I've been at UCLAN, University of Central Lancashire, for about 4 years now. So I've had mainly an international role and a remit, working with international students and supporting and advising students looking to study and work abroad. But I've actually been in the higher education career sector now for nearly 14 years. So
Wow.
this September will be my 14th year. I started my life as a careers professional with the University of Liverpool Careers and Employability Service, and I had a range of roles mainly around project management, training, student and employer engagement to some extent as well, and managed a number of very successful mentoring programs, particularly around diversity. I had quite an interesting journey into the sector. It wasn't something I planned to go into when I was at university. I studied political science related subjects at university. So my undergraduate degree was in international relations, and I studied at the London School of Economics. And then I went on to do a master's in Middle Eastern politics. But I wasn't quite clear, like I think, like a lot of students and graduates, about my actual career direction. And I was very much surrounded by this particular view of success and this pressure to conform to a very traditional career. So, but I kind of realised early on that I wanted to do something quite different. And there was actually a lecture at university from Runnymede Trust, which is obviously the race equality think tank. And a guy came to talk to us about, work around race equality and diversity within the UK. And it really resonated with me. And I just thought, this sounds amazing. I'd love to do something around, helping others to achieve their potential and tackling barriers and discrimination. Yeah. So it took me a while to kind of get to where I was. After 2 years of just kind of, trying to find my feet, I eventually got this job at the University of Liverpool to run a diversity mentoring program. And, it was totally up my street because it was, around helping people overcome barriers and obstacles. So I had a really interesting journey into the sector, and I wasn't sure how long I would stay in the sector, but 14 years later, I'm still here. So I must be doing something right.
Well, it's obviously a nice combination between something you're really good at, but also something that you love, and that's often the holy grail for a lot of young people, and it's not easy to find. So is there any sort of common thread or sort of perspective you've got on it that says, advice for young people about persisting in pursuing what they want?
I think it is important to follow your passions to some extent. I mean, I think, this idea of trying to follow what everybody else is doing, I think that's something which I've been trying to challenge, and particularly I think with like a lot of young BME people, there can be this pressure to go into particular careers. So I think it is important to find something that you're passionate about and love, and that you're good at as well. So not following kind of what everybody else is doing.
It certainly sounds to me like the word passion is often overused, but it sounds to me it emerged for you through trying out different things, gravitating to what interested you and that that stimulated you and energized you, and then finding the skills and the functional sort of ways of doing things that you could apply to it.
Yeah. So for me, it was this lecture that sparked off my interest in kind of working in diversity, and I kind of thought about it, explored it, and researched it, and thought, this is something that I'll be quite interested in going into. But what was interesting was after I graduated from university, I spent 2 years working in I didn't have a lot of work experience at university. I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't make much use of career service at university. And I think it was because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I thought the career service was for people who knew what they wanted to do with their life. They can't help me because I don't know what I want to do. So I kind of just, went through university. But after I finished university, I just started getting work experience in a range of different roles and areas. I signed up with some agencies and just worked in quite a range of temporary roles. And at the time, it seemed like I wasn't really going anywhere with what I was doing because I was just working in all these random jobs, and a lot of them were quite sort of menial jobs, and wasn't any prospects in them. But what was interesting was after 2 years of doing that, I kind of got fed up of all that sort of just working in temporary roles. I thought I've got to get myself a proper graduate job, or something with some meaning and somewhere where I could move forward. And I signed up to this graduate development program with the University of Liverpool actually at the time, and that was how I got to hear about this job with the Careers Service. So what was interesting was when I was talking in the interview about kind of my skills and experience, because I was very conscious that I'd had a lot of different jobs, and I thought this kind of looks like I've not had any purpose or direction to my last 2 years. But it was the transferable skills that really I think made it for me, that really sort of helped me excel and move forward, because I was able to say in the interview that, okay, I hadn't worked in higher education prior to that first job at Liverpool, but I'd worked in a lot of different roles in different areas, and I'd gained lots of different skills and experiences, which ultimately helped me when I was applying for that job, when I was going for the interview, because I was able to talk about, I'd worked in a customer service environment, so, and dealing with customers and clients, and then, how I developed interpersonal skills and team working skills. So, I kind of really put that forward that, I've had a lot of different jobs and I've done a lot of random things, which might, on paper look random, but actually it all came together for me. So it was kind of my interest in the diversity element, kind of, going back to my university days, and then sort of a research that I did. And it was interesting because I actually read a report around mentoring and the importance of mentoring about 2 years before I got the job. So I was kind of aware of things that had been happening. And then I said all my transferable skills, which definitely helped me. So that's something I would say to students as well, is that sometimes it's, there's no linear path to career, success and getting into your first job. Sometimes, for some people, it happens straight away. I mean, my friends at university sailed into their chosen career paths with no problem at all. But, for other people, including myself, it can sometimes take time to get there, and you have to often do different things to get to where you want. But it's about picking up the skills. And
it's interesting you should say it. I read an article this week about stragglers, strollers, and stumblers, which seem to me sum it up really well. Is that, and there's the impression that certainly I find with young graduates and students, is that there is this particular time limit that you have, and you've got to have done something by a certain time. When actually, for some people, there's a period of exploration. There's a period for other people. There's a much more clarity, so they dive into it. And then it's maybe, oh no, it's not what I thought it was, so I'll change direction. Life is not a nice, straight, linear path, and it might take some time. And there's an argument for saying that current graduates and students, it's taking longer than it may have done in the past for all sorts of different reasons. So it's interesting what you say about this sort of exploration on the one hand, but also a spark from a lecture, and also your own personal background and interests all coalescing together to take you down a particular path, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
so thank you for that.
No, thank you.
I want to move on a little bit to what you're doing in terms of currently with international students, and because that's also really interesting, I think, around the sort of job, career and employability challenges of international students and BME and diverse groups. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that they're facing.
Okay, so with international students, I mean, I've worked with international students, not just through my job at UCLAN, but even when I was working at Liverpool University, I was quite heavily involved within some of the international student initiatives and projects there. I think, it is very challenging times. I mean, international students are such a big part of UK higher education. They
Mm.
contribute massively economically, socially, culturally to the higher education landscape, but they have had a lot of challenges. And I think the biggest challenge has been around, particularly since 2012, is the changes in visa
Mm.
regulations, which has meant that, as those will know, it's obviously a lot harder now to work in the UK as a graduate in terms of the work visas. So the government has obviously made it a lot strict and a lot tighter. And I think what's been interesting is I think students have cottoned on to that, obviously. So what we found is, like, I did a survey with some international students a few years, not about a year and a half ago, to find out what their career needs and what their career needs were, what they were looking for in terms of support and help. And I think the biggest thing they were looking for was around more work experience in the UK rather than, graduate jobs. I think a lot of them are still looking, for the graduate job element, but they realise that it's a lot harder because of the visa regulations. But I think what we've found is there's still been quite a lot of lack of awareness and knowledge, not through any fault of the students necessarily, but in terms of obviously around the visa regulations, because it has been a real minefield to get your head around the information. It's a very complex situation and rules have been changing all the time. So I think we found that students are not necessarily sure what the process is, what's involved, what their options are really. And I think
So it's a real challenge there, isn't there, about work experience? Because on the one hand, they've changed the rules to say that international students, you only have about 4 months, don't you, after your degree, whereas previously it used to be something like 2 years. And you're competing for work experience in that period of time with students who are based in the UK and are going to stay on in the UK. And you get this kind of paradox, really, because you've got students who go and do internships, etc., who are more likely to go on to get a job in following their internship with that company or with that organisation. But that's not on offer for an international student. So where do they go? How do they do it? And at the same time, you've got the value that they bring, both in terms of income, but also in terms of diversity and intercultural sharing, etc. Where's the payback? It's quite a complicated, complex mix.
Yeah, the work experience issue, is obviously a big one. It's finding relevant opportunities. I mean, there are various initiatives and things going on to try and tap into, the international student market. And we've been working with UKTI. We've had links with UKTI for the last sort of year and a half, and they've had this initiative where local businesses are looking to recruit students with language and cultural expertise, particularly international students. And so we found that there is that interest, but obviously, when it comes to the graduate job side of things, it is harder because of the visa issues. But so I think that is a big challenge for the students, is getting their head around what the job market is like, what UK employers are expecting and wanting. And I think also the language confidence as well. So it's just, helping them to be more confident in their language skills and their ability and things as well. So
I read somewhere that if you're an Indian graduate, you're 40% more likely to be employable if you can speak really good English.
Right, okay, I didn't see that particular stat, but yeah, I mean, obviously English language communication is essential, and we do a lot of things in UCLAN to help students with sort of their English language skills and confidence, building those classes and things that are going on to help them, and also various events and things that go on to help them sort of integrate more into UK life, which is obviously very important as well.
What do you think international students bring to student life?
Oh, lots really. I think, as I said, I think when we talk about international students' contribution to the UK, I think it's always often looked through sort of economic lenses and monetary value, which you can't deny it. I mean, they contribute like billions of pounds to the industry and the boost to the economy. But I think socially, culturally, when I was at university, I mean, I studied at two very global universities, the London School of Economics and obviously SOAS, and a lot of my classmates and friends were, international students, and it was just great to be able to learn and understand about their culture and their way of life and their perspectives and things. I probably didn't appreciate it as much then as I do now, obviously working in higher education. But yeah, I mean, there's so much that they can bring in terms of, we talk about internationalization of higher education, and it brings and it starts at home. To be honest,
Mm.
it starts very much here within the universities and within institutions in terms of internationalization of UK students. So, getting them to understand the way different cultures work, different perspectives and things. I think, and enhancing, the academic environment, and obviously enhancing workforce in terms of diversity as well. So that shouldn't be underestimated. I think the economic argument and the numbers argument and things is often, obviously emphasised, but it's about a lot more than that as well.
It's also an interesting contradiction as well that employers want more global graduates. They want them to be more outgoing. They want them to understand more about the world and how it works from a business point of view. And you've got this fantastic resource on our doorsteps, the international student community, with all that diversity, and yet the emphasis always seems to be, oh, go abroad, go and travel, and yet, so how can UK students who are based here and international students who are based here, how can they learn more from each other in order to develop that global graduate expertise and capability?
Yeah, you're right. I think there is a lot of emphasis on the whole going abroad, which I don't deny. It's it's a very powerful tool to develop, your international experience, and I think the good thing is studying and working abroad has become a lot easier in some respects. A lot more opportunities, definitely, and there's a lot more projects and initiatives. But I think within the UK, I think. Yeah, I mean, within the classroom, for example, you just, even just within the classroom, there's opportunities for students to learn. And I think sometimes you find that students, because of a lack of confidence, they might just stick to their own culture, their own group
Yeah.
when it comes to kind of like group learning and things. And I think, I've been involved in things in sort of, classroom-based activities where students are interacting and they're communicating. I mean, I did a session with a group of students quite recently where they had to do like an assessment centre, like a mock assessment centre as part of a module. And it was interesting because they were all from different cultures and backgrounds, and they were sort of, you could see the different learning styles and the different ways people communicate. But that's really valuable for students to learn that, because if they're going into a work context, they have to, and you talk about the global graduate, part of being a global graduate is being able to operate, with people across different teams, across different cultures and backgrounds. So it's great that students can get that opportunity here, within the classroom to do that, really. So the classroom is a really important platform, really. And I think, it's about getting students to be more confident about interacting with it. And I think they do it quite successfully, but often you do find that sometimes students, because they're not very confident maybe within their language skills, whatever they do, they might stick to their own kind of groups. But so it's kind of breaking down those barriers. I think also the wider university environment as well, through the student union. There's lots of societies and things that exist where students can come along and learn about different cultures and environments. We have a really good language and cultural learning centre at UCLAN called Worldwise, where students can learn a language for free, but they also do cultural classes and awareness classes as well. So that's quite useful.
What's the mix in UCLAN in terms of the populations? How does it compare with other universities? Because the impression I get is that it's got quite a high international student population.
It's relatively high. I mean, it's obviously not as large as maybe some of the other larger universities, but we have quite maybe sort of 2,000 to 3,000 international students. A lot from China, like most universities. The majority are from China. We have quite a significant number of students from the Middle East as well, and Africa and some of the other Asian countries as well. So
I was talking to somebody who's doing some work with another university about leadership and leadership development with some Chinese students who are students in this at a university in the UK, and the interesting conversation around that was around what does leadership mean? What does a leader look and sound like, and how do they behave in different cultural contexts? So if you want to, if you think about how the world is working, China is a very huge growth area in terms of exports and imports, etc. So somebody coming to this country will have a particular perspective about what is good leadership, whereas maybe somebody from the UK would have a completely different perspective. And just putting those two together to have a conversation about what does leadership look like to you is a hugely valuable thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think those conversations. I said when I did that group work recently with those group of students, it was just interesting to see, because they had to negotiate with each other as well within particular setting. So they were given this scenario, and they had to. They had to kind of obviously manage each other, and you could see the different cultural values that kind of maybe coming out a little bit, the way people operate. So it is really interesting. It's definitely interesting seeing that. So I think, there is lots of opportunities for students to learn from each other through the classroom, but going above and beyond that as well, because there's so many opportunities within university now to get involved in different things. So I think students can learn from each other in the wider student environment as well, through societies and events and things like that as well.
Brilliant. And in terms of being a global graduate, what do you advise? What are your tips for being more open, shall we say?
Well, I think I've read a lot about what a global graduate means, and what's the values and what employers are looking for. And I think one of the interesting things reading recently is about this global mindset. And it was interesting because there was an article on the AGR website, the Association of Graduate Recruiters, and there was an interview with a graduate recruiter about the global mindset. And, it's about being curious and open to other cultures and looking at things from different perspectives and understanding and appreciating that. And they actually found that with their own graduates. This particular recruiter found that those graduates with global mindset did better in their careers, were more productive, and worked better in teams. So I think it's about, being open to exploring other cultures and being curious. So that's one kind of tip that I would say. The language skills, I think, is a really important thing. I think I've read there are mixed views about how important language skills are in terms of being a global graduate. So some employers have rated it very highly, and others have said it's essential. It would be useful, but it's not kind of essential criteria. But I really think it is important, because in terms of thinking about what you can offer as a unique selling point and unique skills, you can't go wrong with knowing another language. And I don't think I think people have this perception that you have to be a complete whiz and a real master at languages. I don't think you necessarily have to be. I think it's just a knowledge, or even if you're just able to demonstrate that you are learning a language, I even think that's very valuable. And I wrote a blog post recently about how we need to rethink language and learning and careers. So even what I would say to students now is, European language is still very much in demand. And I think what was interesting is the CBI did a survey with their businesses. They do this education skills survey, I think every year or every 2 years. And about half of their business was saying that language is very important for them, and particularly European languages. So obviously European languages will always be in demand, but it's also recognising the fact that the world is changing. Economic and political changes mean that other languages are on the rise, like Arabic and Mandarin. So I would say to students, do think outside the box if you are looking at language learning. So don't be afraid to learn, minority languages or non-European languages.
It's one of those things actually that can make you stand out or differentiate yourself from other people. And if you combine it with other things, so for example, if you're, I don't know, a computer programmer or you do coding, etc., and you've got a language, you immediately find yourself in a completely different ballgame in terms of expertise and who wants you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've worked, I said, with the UKTI. There's been local businesses that have been very much, keen to recruit students with, Mandarin speaking skills. So I think, it's about, being, thinking outside the box when it comes to your language learning. The third thing I'd say is about just making the most of opportunities within the university, both in terms of within the UK, but also globally. Studying and working abroad has said, there are so many opportunities and programs going on now to study and work abroad. You've still got the Erasmus programs. There's Generation UK, British Council funding to, go to India and China and places like that. We do a travel bursary at UCLAN, so we give some financial support to students who are looking to go abroad as part of their course, as part of a career kind of development. So do make the most of opportunities to go abroad. But as I said, within your own university, don't forget that we have a global student, population
Absolutely.
with our institutions. Make the most of mentoring schemes, peer buddy schemes, events and things like that, and just informal conversations. There's students from all over the world, from really interesting places, and who've got a lot to offer, who've got a lot of things that they can offer to the UK student internationalisation process, as it were. So I think that's really important.
Brilliant. Great tips, great advice. Time has flown by, and
I know,
we've come to the end of our time. I just wanted to sort of ask you a little bit about your blog and how people can connect with you.
Okay, so my blog, I've been running my blog now for about a year, Everything Careers. So it took a while to kind of get it started. I had quite a challenging year in 2014, so it took a while to kind of get started. But yeah, so it's a personal blog. It's a blog about my own reflections and thoughts and views on different career and employability matters. And I've done quite a lot around international and diversity related things as well. So that's something that's been quite a big focus. So the web link is everythingcareers.wordpress.com.
Good. I shall put a link to that in the post that accompanies this blog.
And people are welcome to connect with me through my blog, but also my social medias are, because I'm very active, as you know, on Twitter.
Well, I think we met originally on Twitter, didn't we?
I think we did, actually. Yeah, we did. It was through, I can't remember through. I've been on social media for about 5 years, and I have to say, it's absolutely revolutionised the way I work and operate my career. So going back to, in terms of, just your other point about how to be a global graduate, my tips, social media is an absolute must. I think, for any, not even just being a global graduate, just a must generally, getting onto Twitter and LinkedIn and using them smartly and effectively for your career is so important, especially if you're wanting to work and globally as well. So people are welcome to connect with me on that as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today, and
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Best of luck for the future.
Thank you.